Welcome to today's podcast, Local Yokels. My name is Yokel. I'm your host, and today I have a special guest in the house from a group of folks that are special to me because I just went through some things with my own mother, and they're from the Genesis program in Memphis. We have with us today Sarah Hickenbotham and Miss Robin Bozarth. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate the opportunity to, talk about our organization and what it is that we can do to help our community.
Sure. Kind of just like real rundown real quick from what I found out. The Genesis program is kind of like we hear about medical donations, like I'm donating my body to science. And that's kind of what Genesis is. It's a medical research facility after one's passed. It's not organ donation, definitely, as far as I understand. I've always understood that to be the case. Like somebody go, I'm an organ donor. Well, I kind of thought that's what you was doing, but you can elaborate on that a little bit if you'd like. It just, it's just basically the research behind it, the medical field. I know that's mostly what y'all do.
Sure. So we have the MERI Center, which is the Medical Education Research Institute located in Memphis. And Genesis, let me go back. MERI is a hands-on educational bioskills facility for surgeons, first responders, healthcare providers, medical device companies from around the world that come and do hands-on training. Genesis is the whole body donation foundation within the organization of MERI that supports all that education and training with the selfless gift of our donors. So that's kind of where the MERI side and Genesis fit in together. So if you came and saw our facility, it was MERI Genesis. So Genesis is the donation facility where MERI is the actual facility where the donor comes to at the time of passing.
Real quickly, before we get too far into this, give your information out real quick where people, if they're interested, and they can be looking this up while we're talking or they're watching this podcast, your contact.
So our contact information is MERI.org, and that's MERI.org. Or you can contact us at 877-288-4483. We can answer any questions, and that's 24/7. You will get one of our staff members at any time.
Great. And I can attest to that because I called on literally a holiday and someone answered the phone.
Yes.
So I know someone's there at all times. So.
And you will get our staff.
Yes.
It may go to an answering service after hours, but any callbacks come from our team only that are in-house at all times.
Agreed. Well, Sarah, tell us what role you play at Genesis.
So I'm a Genesis specialist. Yeah. I'm part of the intake coordination for donors after they pass, as well as working with families prior to passing. So if a donor is interested in doing this after passing, you can always pre-register with us, or it can be done at the time of death. A lot of people aren't aware of that. And so I am part of that intake.
That's how I actually did it. I did it the day after my mother passed because we were, for those who are listening, she passed on the 4th of July this year. And the family was sitting around the day after, and we're like trying to make burial plans. And like, well, Mom was talking about donating her body to this one program. And I didn't know, I wasn't sure about it. But she had several friends that had talked to her about it. And so everybody in the room was like, she talked to us too. But she didn't get the paperwork finished, And
that's not uncommon.
Yeah, right.
It's not uncommon. So in people who even do get their paperwork finished, we get a lot of donors from Mississippi, Louisiana, other places that had been pre-registered. Maybe they couldn't accept them. Maybe they've moved out of their range, if you will, like UT Knoxville only can accept donors within 100 miles. Otherwise, there's a fee to the family to be able to obtain that information, to obtain that donation. So a lot of times they refer to us. UMC, same thing, and how the donor is moved or prepared at the time of passing. So giving the families an option to know that even though their loved one has passed on, it's not too late. It is not too late. Contact us again.
I was totally shocked. I'm not even going to lie. I was like, man, it's a holiday. Like, there's no way. And we were leading into the weekend. So, but I can just attest, you guys are super professional and very helpful, especially at dire time, like just immediate death. Like we're dealing with this. We're just like hours past this and we're talking about it. So you guys took over and made it so easy and simple for us. And we really appreciate that if I didn't tell you already, because it was a nice
Well, that's certainly our goal.
Yes, absolutely.
Is to ensure that the family has the least amount of worry at that time.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of paperwork involved, and a lot of times that is hard for families because they're like, well, we really can't deal with this right now. Well, that's the unfortunate side, is that is very time sensitive. In order to get your loved one to our facility is to get that paperwork completed, ensuring that we have the right next of kin or power of attorney or things in line at that moment. So we ask a lot of questions, as you know, to ensure that your loved one can meet all the criteria, because there is a specific criteria.
There are some. Weight is one. I didn't
one.
even know that, to be honest with you, until actually when I came and picked my mother up from Miss Sarah here a couple of weeks ago. Her remains, I had ashes, I should say. I don't know what remains, but ashes. I need to use the right terminology. That there is a weight requirement, and I didn't know that. So can you tell us some of the requirements?
Sure. So we
restrictions,
have a list.
if there is.
So we list it as what's called a donor risk and suitability. So we are accredited by the American Association of Tissue Banks, and with that accreditation, there are thousands of whole body donation facilities within the country in the U.S. Only 7 are accredited by AATB. Now, that is by choice. It's not something. The unfortunate side is body donation is not regulated. But we work very hard with AATB to ensure that we have to meet a higher standard. We have audits. We have to do audits in-house. There's a lot of processes that have to be done in-house to ensure that we maintain these standards. They come out, the association does every 3 years, physically audits us, and it's a grueling process, but it's certainly worth the time that is spent on a daily basis to ensure that we are, number one, treating our donors respectfully and dignified, to ensure that all the paperwork is in order, everything is legal, because the unfortunate side is that you can get in a very big pickle if the right person is not signing the paperwork when someone passes, because someone will say, well, I haven't talked to my brother in 25 years. So no, I don't have a sibling. Well, as soon as that loved one dies and they sign that paperwork, though there's a statement that says, I don't know of anyone else, here comes the other loved one saying, I would never, or my mother would have never. And so there's a lot of legality. So we ensure on a daily basis that all the legal pieces of 19 states that we operate in are done appropriately. So again, there's a criteria that has to be met for our specific program. Every program is different. For us, we do a risk versus a suitability. So risk is going to be any kind of infectious disease. If you have a lifetime history of hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV, or tuberculosis, a positive TB skin test or TB blood product positivity, those would be an automatic decline. With COVID, a lot of people, COVID, as we know, has just become another flu process. And COVID, for our restrictions, are if you die of COVID or COVID complications, we have to decline, or if you test positive within a 10-day period of passing. We look at height and weight. That's going to be a BMI 15 to 35. Now, I will say in our local community, and that's within about a 350-mile radius of Memphis, we will work. If they're 14 and a half, maybe 15 and a half, 35 and a half-ish, and they're right across the street, we're going to work with the family as best as possible.
And when you say that, does that just mean because they're a little too big for certain things, or, I mean...
It's a number of factors. So one is
the BMI.
The BMI is 15 to 35, weight limit of 250. Because we all know someone who's 5'2", 250 is different than someone 6'4", 250. But some of it is storage space within the facility, protecting of our staff for lifting, because they have to move and lift the donors at all time physically, and then ensuring that we can meet the obligation of what we call sponsor, medical device industry, physicians. And we all know that people who are bigger have to have surgery too.
Sure. And
we stress that, but that is really not the commonality when you're actually operating on a donor, if you will. So there are that restrictions, but I would say more of it is storage and staff safety.
But like you said, if it's something like super local, And it's just a little bit over the line. You guys do work
Yeah,
with the
we do.
families
We
because
work
it is
very, very
right.
hard with the families.
Because I can attest, like obviously the lower side of it. You know, I've seen some people that gets. My father was like that. He just went down to nothing at the end of his life, and I'm pretty sure he would not have been a candidate for your program at that point in time. So because he looked. I mean, it was just wasn't the same person. You know,
we do look at severe emaciation to that extent. Again, we look at things like sepsis, MRSA, and I'll get back to sepsis in just a minute, but staph. And then we ask your normal, typical donor questions, swine flu, West Nile, rabies, Ebola, things like that, which I don't think in my over 20 years in this industry have I ever had someone say yes to those questions. But then you step in, those are automatic declines. Then you step into the suitability. So we talk about open wounds. Again, we try to work with every donor family to try to honor the wishes of their loved one or of them themselves. Sometimes it can be an indigent situation where there's no funding anymore and they can't meet the means of a traditional funeral cost or even direct cremation. So this is an option for those families. And so we try to work with them as best as possible. Again, we go back to weight. We go to open wounds, trauma to the body. We look at, we unfortunately will not take a homicide or a suicide. We don't get into family dynamics and legality pieces of that. So
it's not just a place where anybody can go. Like you gotta be fitting to the program. You know, because you are going to be training our future doctors and EMTs. Sure.
Donor, if you will, with someone that's 5'10", 180 and just passed of heart attack. I mean, that's a great teacher, but I think all of our donors are great teachers, no matter what their health underlying issue is that they're donated, whether it be, there's a lot of skepticism when you look at, they say, oh, well, if I have cancer, I can't be a donor. That may rule you out for organ donation. And that's where we get to a lot of the separation where the community all around doesn't know how to separate the two. You talk about, oh, I'm going to be an organ and eye donor. Oh, I'm already a donor. But what are you donating? Are you donating? There's brain, organ, eye, tissue, and whole body. And with our program, you can still be a brain, an organ, and an eye donor and still do whole body. We do limit restrictions on tissue donation, and we work with all what's called the organ procurement organizations. In Mississippi, it's called MERI. In Tennessee, it's Mid-South Transplant and Tennessee Donor Services. We work with all those organizations, and generally, if the family wants to do both, we work as much as possible to ensure that they can give as much as they can and utilize the gift.
Yeah, I think I was really surprised. You know, obviously cancer is a problem with most all of our families. We got somebody in our family that's passed or had an issue with cancer at some point in time, and my mother, when she passed, we were actually visiting a close family friend that you guys were aware of. I mentioned was in our community as well. He had passed of cancer, and I was not surprised, but just I didn't know that the dynamics or the protocols behind what you guys would and wouldn't do. So, but as I didn't think about it at that time that it would be a non-qualifier or it wouldn't be, either way, based on history. I just, I assume they took everybody, so getting educated a little bit on my end of it. I learned a little bit as I was reading up on it. My brother and I, we were kind of like talking about how great the program was and how easy it made it for us. And I know for that family as well, the Graffs, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't mind me mentioning their name on there because they were very fortunate to have you guys too. And that's kind of part of how my mom finally made her decision, because she had a roommate, family, well, I don't even want to call her a roommate. One of her best friends lived with her for a long time, and Miss Darlene, and she had, her mom came up and toured it because she wanted to come and be a part of your program. And my mom was very curious, and of course it was downtown Memphis, and I was like, Mama, you probably need to go or something. And, they had went up there together and come back, and they were just raving about how nice and beautiful the facility was that you guys have, and how everybody was so sweet and so concerned about, the questions they had. And so that's when she started first talking about it. And then when she found out her friends, the Graffs, both had, donated their body to Genesis. And, it just made a very simple process. And I think that's when she really was involved in trying to, cause she was a very religious woman. All we ever heard about was the burial side of life. And she lived in 3 significant places in her life, and everywhere she lived, she was a little bit of a rock star, So I always teased her about having to take her on the grand tour for her, her burial, And so to my surprise, and I think my family's as well, it's like she had changed her mind completely because she was a giver, and she wanted to continue to give back after death. So that was her way of doing it.
She was a teacher?
She was well, yes, she is. She was a teacher, an assistant teacher at Walls for many, many years, and also had a lot to do with just taking on a lot of situations where she could help these children even beyond school. Like she was always trying to find them clothes and get food for them or whatever, and that's how we got into the Feed My Lambs program we talked about. Right. And she was a big part of that. She was a liaison at the school for many years, and then her friend Betty Spooner took over for her after she had retired. But they still did clothes closets, all this stuff. So she was a giver. And then when she found out this was something, you just weren't giving your organ, that was enough for her to be a part of it. But you also could train these doctors and EMTs and nurses that you don't get those guys without organ or donors, whole body donors, because they train. That's how they train to know how to save people in the field, or doctors learn how to do their procedures, all that stuff. So
yeah, and I think it's important to also understand a lot of our families and potential donors aren't aware that you can do both. You can do organ and then turn around and do whole body as well. And so that plays a really big important factor in their mindset to know that they can do both.
I think it's a great program. I am. When I came up and I was like, I got to get those guys on. When I did this podcast, I'm like, I didn't know about it, so I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't know about it. And
they don't. I feel like I feel like we're the best kept secret in the city of Memphis.
Yeah, in the surrounding area, because you guys service the whole tri-state area. Like we
service 19 states within the U.S.
Yeah, I'm just talking about your location.
Yes, that is correct.
Absolutely. And I forget, if you are listening abroad, which I may, if I'm lucky enough to have listeners outside of the studio, probably, but be mindful of that. Like, they are located in Memphis, and they do the surrounding areas, but they are in every state, or 19 states, as they mentioned.
19 states, and if we're not in the state, or if we're not even able to take the potential donor at that time, we do refer them to other accredited banks in other states that could help them potentially. But knowing that we are in Memphis, and again, locally, we have an open door policy. We don't mind anybody calling. Again, 877-288-4483. Schedule a tour. We'd be happy to show everybody around if they just want to talk about paperwork. Some people are not interested in that side of it. They're not interested in the medical side. That's kind of the maybe taboo, if you will, when people talk about, we don't want to talk about death.
Everybody's a little different about it. Yeah.
Until that happens. We'll deal with it when it happens.
Right. That's
why a lot of people don't have things in place. They don't have, when they do body, donation, no pre-registration. There's no power of attorneys in place and things like that. Or if they do, they've got their financial, not their health care. And what a lot of people don't know when it comes to that, if someone is preparing, just so people will understand, and this is not even about the body donation side, if you are preparing a healthcare power of attorney, it would be in your best interest to ensure that whoever you assign as your healthcare power of attorney also has the rights to what's called final disposition. That means they have the right, and don't specify it unless you don't want to be donated or you don't want to be cremated. You just say they can make my funeral arrangements. They can arrange my cremation, because a lot of people get confused and they say, well, I'm power of attorney. Well, you are, but the unfortunate side, a lot, not all, cease it passing.
Right.
When the death occurs, that power of attorney is no longer valid. And when I ask, okay, so they weren't married, no, how many children? Well, there's 4 of us, but 2 of us haven't spoken in, 30 years. The law doesn't play favorites.
Right.
And the law states, well, we need 4 signatures. Well, there's nothing I can do about that. Well, the unfortunate side is our organization, being accredited and with what the laws are, couldn't accept that donation. But it's also amazing as to how many people find the other 2 people when it comes to, again, if maybe it's an indigency thing. Maybe they weren't close to that loved one. And they just say, we don't know what to do. We weren't, I know I'm next of kin, but we weren't close.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's try to help you out and see what we can do.
That's wonderful that you told us about that. Those pieces of information are very important for us going forward because, like, I know I wasn't aware of all that legality stuff, especially when you're in the throes of just losing your loved one.
Right.
You're just thinking, I got to do something fast, because it's not, I don't know how long it takes, like you don't want to have them sitting somewhere for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. We don't know, and so one of the biggest issues we had was just we took a vote in a living room with all of us sitting there, grandchildren and brothers, we just all took a, who wants to in favor, we're like, well, that's what she wanted. We all felt that way. So we were lucky that we had a family dynamic that was agreeable.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that. And then I know of in a recent case, I haven't seen these people in 20 years, but I do know that a lady roughly, mid-50s, not married, got a child, and it was a place where they had to go. Fortunately, you guys were there for them. And I think it could have been in a position where financially it was the best decision for them to make that choice, because as a young man, probably didn't have the ability to pay for the funeral and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So it was an option there. Or even to get them,
direct cremation alone is
it's very expensive.
Pretty pricey.
Yeah, it can be.
Yes.
It can be.
So this is an option too for folks that are just not wanting to incur the expense, don't have the financial ability to bury, and know that there is some good that's going to come from it because there is a need for whole body donations in the medical community. I mean, you were talking about me. I don't mind talking about it because my mom would have thought it was really cool. I had jokes. We were talking about potentials, like me and the kids were all talking about what are they doing with grandma, And but you did tell me that she had a knee replacement, and she had some years on that knee. Mm-hmm. Probably about 15, I'm guessing. I don't really know exactly, but I do remember that she had it, and that was something that you guys knew about her, and so there was a doctor that was doing a study on how the tissues and bones reacted for knees over time, that kind of stuff. So she was part of that as well. Part of the study went to how this over time affects the body, and how maybe they can improve upon some of their hip replacement, joint replacement, whatever it is. So it goes beyond just studying, arteries and hearts and things like that. Just so people know all of us are probably going to wind up with some kind of something foreign object in our body to keep us living longer at some point in time. And this is something that has to be studied,
Absolutely. So the MERI Center, where all the actual hands-on piece take place with the donor, is an amazing facility. We have a 27,000 square foot facility. We have, we occasionally take our donors on the road.
Yeah.
And they do travel, but they are with our staff
the whole time.
Then they are brought back to our facility for cremation or reutilization, if you will, of the donation of the gift. Because the average participation of a donor into an event would be 5 to 7 times. Mm-hmm. Each family gets a research letter, which tells them everything their loved one participated in, how it helped further education and research. And I want to go back a little bit to the education and training side. We talk about organ, eye, tissue donation and how life-saving that is, that one donation can save over 70 lives. And people think that when you donate your body to science, that you just are a donor at a medical school, a cadaver is what some people would say, and that you're there with one physician. And that's not the case, especially in our facility. Again, there may be 100 surgeons in that room. There may be 50 responders. Memphis Police Department, not one of their recruits can even think about moving on until they have come to the MERI and done first responder training. Because you think about it, when something happens, who's the first on the scene?
It's true.
The police. They're not life-saving individuals. That's what you have your EMTs and your paramedics and your physicians and nurses for. But they're the first one on the scene. So their job is to keep you alive until the first responders that are necessary get there to get you to where you need to be. And it happens all the time. So MPD ensures that all of their recruits come through the MERI and do it's called Medicop. And it's required for any Memphis police officer. We, as a not-for-profit organization, ensure that we give a percentage of our revenue goes to community give back. So we do a lot of work with a lot of the residency programs through UTHSC there in Memphis for them to come over, do some hands-on training. We do a lot of work with the local fire departments and rescue first responders in the tri-state area. So again, community give back is very important to me. I do a lot of local volunteering. And so ensuring that I am with this organization and supporting our mission and vision is very, very important. And I could talk about it all day long.
I can tell.
I truly could.
I think Robin is just a chitty chatter. Like, you want to host this show? Like, I really think you'd be good at it. So
I don't know about that,
but anyway, look, that's amazing. I mean, all of it's amazing to me. I'm learning as you're talking right now, just about I really thought it was like nurses, doctors, EMTs, and now we're talking about, obviously, cops. It has to be, it's a requirement through the police department that they have to go through this,
that's right.
And by the way, anybody that's listening, I implore you to go up and check out this facility. It's right off of Union Avenue up there. And it is a phenomenal facility. It's very nice, very well kept, very safe. You're not in a part of town where you got to worry about looking over your shoulder. They got security around everywhere, and it's a very, very welcoming facility. I was very, very surprised because I just hadn't been there. I didn't know what to expect.
You're in Midtown Memphis. You don't know what to expect in that area. We're at 44 South Cleveland, which is the corner of Union and Cleveland, near Methodist Central. And again, call us, email us, reach out at any time. Email.
Sarah will come down and meet you at the front door.
Absolutely.
My famous quote is, "We're right across the street from the Social Security office."
Yeah,
Anybody is very familiar with that.
That's
Hopefully,
a good
you're
location,
not familiar with
by the
Methodist
way.
University.
Yeah.
But
So we are the old original post office.
Okay.
From way back. So this is our 30th year in operation. Okay. So we're super excited. We started out with probably 10 employees. And
you would know that because you're from around here. And by the way, I want to get into that a little bit. I want to kind of diverge off of our medical topics, get a little bit about you guys personally, because I want people to know these are not implants into our area. This podcast is about local people, local programs. Yes, I say DeSoto County, but North Mississippi, tri-state area, whatever. I'm kind of I want to do it all. But both of you live in the Mid-South, and Robin, you're actually from Walls.
Yes.
Originally.
So I was born in Memphis, went to kindergarten in Whitehaven, but moved to Walls when I was 6. Grew up in Twin Lakes neighborhood, went to Walls Elementary all 6 years, and then moved on to the middle school, it was the junior high back then. Yeah. In Horn Lake, and then graduated from Horn Lake High School in the late 80s.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that ties back to you are a local yokel.
Absolutely. Yeah. And these are my old stomping grounds.
That's right. And you were we were talking about Coach Camp, Chris Camp, that does the podcast in the same studios I do at the SRP Studios here in Hernando, just to plug them. They do a great job for us. But he also is from Twin Lakes and Walls.
That's right.
I currently live in Walls. But just a total different place now than it was then, it's still kind of out in the country, but it is growing so rapidly.
It is, and it's
really
surprising when I go down that way, and it's not very often, to just kind of drive around and just see everything that's grown up and still how beautiful the Delta is.
Oh, yeah, it really is. It's
you and I talked last week about people we knew, and it's just amazing how everything is such a small world, and you just kind of connect back through.
It really is. And then, I just think, there's so much community need that we're not aware of, programs that are out there in our community. And I know that you and I, that's kind of where our discussion got started. But my mom, what she was doing, got me involved in things. And then you're like, man, I'd love to be a part of that program. I'm from Walls. I'd like to get involved in that, with the Feed My Lamb stuff. And I implore anybody that wants to be any of these people that I bring on that want to get involved in any programs we got. I'm sure all of us need volunteers and help at any given time. So, and now Miss Sarah, I know that you are actually a Razorback girl. Yeah. Just across the river, though. Just across the river. Yeah.
I'm still local, of course. Local. I did grow up in MERI in Arkansas, live in West Memphis now, and it's crazy that I can say that actually it was a requirement that I went to a lab in my senior year of high school because I was in a medical program in high school. And the very first time that I was at the MERI was for a pig lab in Memphis.
Yeah, I forgot y'all told me that about the pigs.
Yes.
So we do, we only operate with swine and rats, which are the closest organs and all to a human. But the difference in when we work with our animals who are USDA certified animals. We're USDA certified ourselves. We have inspectors that come in
Oh,
unannounced.
and they're tough, man. Like, I've got a couple of buddies that's got processing plants, and then it is hard to please those folks. Yeah.
We only acquire our swine from a USDA farm. Actually, it's in Olive Branch.
Right.
And what's
you can mention their name if you'd like.
Nichols Pig Farm.
There you go.
Nichols Hog Farm, I think is
All right,
what it is.
Mr. Nichols, welcome.
And
Thank you.
They actually the difference is our swine are asleep.
Okay.
They're actually alive.
Okay.
During surgery.
Wow.
So
you
have
give
we have a veterinarian, Dr. Joe Barrett, out of Blue Springs, Mississippi, I think is where he's living now. And we have our vet techs, and they're actually alive. So they're brought in a few days. They're acclimated to their environment. They have treats and toys, and they have a heated and electric air.
They teach them. I mean, they just treat them like humans almost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, and we get this a lot. It's like, animals, but we don't do like animal testing. So these animals we create, say it's a neurosurgeon and they're doing aneurysm. So we actually create the carotid aneurysm. Okay. And then the surgeons come in and they're using these new catheters that the medical device company has created.
Life-saving.
Life-saving.
Yes.
And learning how to correct this aneurysm.
Right.
And then once the swine is in a deep anesthetic sleep, they are euthanized. Sure. We have a local pet cemetery, Dixie Memorial out in Millington, that will come and pick them up, cremate them, and spread them in the pet garden.
So before any of you overreact and go,
That's
my
right.
God, just understand, without these studies and these programs, any of us could die of an aneurysm.
That's
that
right.
could be saved potentially because of the work you guys are doing. Yeah.
I think about this all the time, and going back to the organ and eye, and it's like, they save lives, they save lives. When a donor donates their whole body and they come into a bioskills facility such as ours, this is how I always look at it, is if you have one surgeon that comes in, he has his residency, his fellowship, he starts his practice at age 38. Now, he's going to practice to 65 or 70, so at least 32 years. Say they do a knee replacement. So he has to come into MERI. He's getting some CEUs to maintain his licensure. If he came just one time, and then he took that procedure that he learned back to his community for 30 years, how many knee replacements is he doing? I worked for an orthopedic surgeon in trauma. We did 15 to 20 a week.
Wow.
A week.
Wow.
And you think about over 30 years, how many people are able to walk again?
Exactly.
Run, play with their children, their grandchildren. It's, to me, whole body donation is life-saving as well.
Well, yeah, the whole thing, like from the studies, training, the new procedures being found, all that stuff. It's just amazing, really. Like I'm impressed. I'm still learning from y'all, like as you're talking. Like this is really like intriguing to me because like it's so taboo to talk about.
That's right.
The dead anyway, just call it what it is, but also like, things that I think it takes special people to be medical industry people anyway, whether you're a nurse or a CNA or a doctor, that's got, people's lives in your hands every day. But like, I find them so amazing because you got to have a stomach for it. You got to have the mentality for it. Cause like you're working with some difficult people. Look, I got sick a couple years ago. I'm still not sure what happened to me, but my brother and my daughter said I was the worst patient that ever came to, they ever seen. They say it was worse than my daddy, and I don't even know if that's possible because I knew how bad he was. So not everybody's good. You know what I mean? Like a good, easy going,
right.
So sweet. So I applaud all of them. You know what I mean? Like I look
Absolutely.
up to them as like, I don't give them a hard time because I know how hard it is to do the work. And then it's like the stress and the anxiety. I mean, there's almost like PTSD. I don't even know how they don't have it regularly,
And that's funny you say that because with our team, so there are 9 of us, 7 full-time, 2 part-time employees in our department, Genesis. And I have made it a requirement the last few years that we work with a local psychologist out of South Haven.
Yes.
Dr. Tanya Andrews, and she comes and does a compassion fatigue and burnout seminar for our Genesis team annually. That's part of our training process because now it's the end of the year. It's holidays. We're tired.
Yes.
We deal with grief every day.
Every day.
And it's it's not that we're sad, but we cry with our families. We laugh with our families. And then you have families who are just not happy. In general, they're grieving. Their loved one has just passed and they're angry. And we get that. We get that heat. And that's our job to take it.
Yep.
That's our job to take it.
So let me ask you a question. When I came in, was it unusual how I was?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
No.
so I'm joking. I'm talking about my mom being sent up into space.
no.
I was asking questions like, did she go rescue the astronauts that were stuck in space this last few months? Or
Everybody's got a different, if you want to call it grieving, some have already processed that.
Yeah.
We have, I had a gentleman come in. It was the sweetest man. He and his wife had been married for 60 years, and he came in to pick up her cremated remains, and he asked me to transfer it into a different urn, and then several small urns. And
Right.
her sister came, and himself and his wife's best friend, and they wanted to stay while I did the transfer. And I had asked him, do you want to step out? They're like, oh, no. And it was very, very emotional. I mean, he,
can only
bless his
imagine.
heart, he was in his 80s and he just cried.
I can
And it was
understand.
heart-wrenching, but it was beautiful at the same time because he was talking about his wife and all the great, things they had explored over time and what the urn meant and the pieces of it. So everyone is different.
And
Yes.
it's actually nice to have families come in, I think, to kind of get that closure with the donor as well. So we get to meet people, for example, like you. And
yeah, because y'all mail them like
We offer that.
You
right.
offer that, and that was the one thing. And I told Sarah, I'm like, no, I don't live too far away. I can come up, but not
They
everybody
did.
does. Because if you've got a son or daughter or a spouse that lives, maybe they recently moved halfway across the country because their loved one passed.
That's right.
So you got to get them to them. So y'all do handle that. Now that we mentioned that, like
All
talk
over
about
the
that.
world. I just
Right.
mailed some stuff to Vietnam.
Right. Do you do this
yesterday.
through like the postal service, or do you do it through like
So
FedEx?
the law
or
requires the United States Postal Service. You
the law
cannot
requires it, but they handle it.
FedEx, UPS.
So that way
nothing.
they can keep track of it better, control it. And I want to tell you this. I had questions about that for you too. Cause you guys go to great lengths to ensure the loved one is returned to the people. Like there's no mix ups. I mean, I know
That's
that.
right.
So I
Absolutely.
seen the procedure cause I was like, really, I was in Sarah's office. Like, how do you make sure? Like, how do you know, because you guys are dealing with a lot of folks and you walked me through that and showed me how every one of them are like we got into some of the stuff to where when you send them off to do these trainings, like every bandage comes back with them that's used,
Yes.
because you don't want no part of anybody left behind.
That's right.
There's no questions. Like that is y'all's.
That is
Requirements.
our
Yeah.
policies and procedures. And
Yes. And I want to reiterate that was very impressive to me because I'm thinking about my mama's jacked up feet and her toes left in Georgia somewhere or something, because she's like a medical, phenomenon. And when it comes to that kind of stuff, we were laughing about all that. But surely enough, you guys were really explaining to me how in detail it was to make sure you track everything and to make sure you ensure the loved one is returned back to the family.
And we have people call daily to check on their loved one.
Yeah.
And we have absolutely no problem answering that phone call when that
Yes.
comes in. And we'll give them down to the detail as much as they want or as little as they want.
Right.
But
Some
they're
people don't
always
want to know.
taken care
That's
of.
right.
I get that. I mean, I'm just that odd duck that just, I thought it was kind
You're
of
really
cool.
not because
Yeah.
we get
Yeah.
them all the time since,
Yeah.
we were big travelers. Have they
Yeah.
gone anywhere?
Yeah.
What are they doing?
Turns out my mom was rocking and rolling. Like she was all up and down
She
in
was all
Georgia.
over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she'd have
she
been
was
having a
all
great old
over.
time. Yeah.
She was all over. But
Yeah.
you get these device companies and we're very thankful for them
Yeah.
because, they're the ones coming in. They're developing these new products with engineers and surgeons and hands-on physicians, pain management. If there's a branch of medicine, we've done it.
Right.
If we haven't, we will.
Right. And one of the ones, and I can speak on this just because it's my mom, but I haven't gotten my report yet, actually in the mail, and I think it's supposed to be mailed out this week. You told me or something, but you did elaborate a little bit on some of the things she did, and I thought it was awesome. She went and trained the military on EMT field.
That's right.
And I thought that was very cool because then that's a lot of folks that they're going to be, potentially dealing with, and Fort Benning, Georgia.
That's right.
That's one place you
and
told me.
let me reiterate, those type of events
Mm-hmm.
that happen with military are what we call special projects.
Yeah.
And they have to be authorized first.
Mm-hmm.
So your family signed the paperwork to have that done. That's an optional form, because some people are like, oh, no, I don't want to.
We were just open for anything. Yeah, we were.
And some people are not, and we totally respect that. So we just tell them just disregard
Yeah,
that.
you can
and
check
they
off
don't
like the
get-
limits of what you feel necessary. That maybe this is beyond what I want to think about or what have you.
Right,
You know?
so you just disregard that side. But then
Sure.
we get the questions of, well, my mom had cancer, or she had ALS, or she had brain cancer, or she had a stroke. We would like to do that type, Alzheimer's. The unfortunate side is our facility, we don't do specific researches, but we certainly can pass that on to another group who may be able to help that family if we're not.
Sure. Which again, thank y'all so much for being so open about what you do, because I know it's a little bit, like I said, the word taboo gets tossed around. I mean, I don't know if that's the right word. It's just uncomfortable, I think, for some people.
And in the South, we're raised as, and I say that Gen Xers. Sarah's a little bit past that.
What are you considered to be, Sarah?
She's a Gen Z.
Yeah.
All right. We won't tell you tell us your age.
30 and above.
Okay, 30 and above.
We'll go
I
with.
All right.
But we're raised to say, okay, well, I'm going to be buried.
Yes.
I'm going to be buried. And you can even talk to your baby boomers now, and my mom specifically. So I'm registered as a donor. Both of my sisters are registered donors. I've had 8 family members who've gone through the program.
Yeah.
And I just to clarify, I've been with MERI for 21 years.
I want to be on record right now to say that I'm going to donate my body to Genesis.
That's awesome.
I haven't signed paperwork, but if anybody goes back and they hear this,
we can say, "Oh, did you know that Neil had? He said it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm
That's
gonna do
awesome.
it. Yeah, I just see like it's such a waste in my mind to not allow the research and discovery process.
And we're seeing that more now with when we talk about the boomers and the Gen Xers. And people think, oh well, I guess they're giving because they don't have the means of
well, it's not that.
It's not about that.
We could have
not
certainly
about
buried
that.
my mother, no questions asked. Or we could have cremated her. That wasn't a problem.
Right.
Matter of fact, my good friend Lee that runs Memphis Funeral Home. He's done that for cremations for multiples of the family, and that was certainly the option, But then when she said that, I'm like, well, that's the end result. But she wants to do this way.
Right. They want to give back to the mankind.
Yeah.
Some families.
I
feel
did check
that
with
this
him
is
on his
just
opinion about
Yeah.
the program. Like I called him, the day of, and I'm like, and I asked him what he thought. He said, that's an awesome program. He was very, because
We
know
love
him.
Lee.
Yeah,
Lee very well.
Absolutely.
He's a great guy.
So shout out to Lee Murphy.
Lee Murphy.
Yeah, Memphis Funeral Home.
Memphis
so
Funeral
I'll give you a free plug. Yeah. And I need to talk about my sponsor real quick, Roofworks of Memphis and Hernando and this tri-state area, but they're based out of the DeSoto County area. Primarily is where they do their work. They do commercial roofing, residential roofing. They also sponsor this show. You'll probably start seeing some of their logos on my lead-ins to my intros and outros. So thank you again, Mr. Randy and Ms. Kay, for sponsoring our show. All right. So I'll get all the good stuff out of the way. And we want to promote and spotlight you guys even more so today. So talk more about some of the things you see coming forward this year. Now, before you get into that, I might just get us off the road again here. And if I ever get us off track, you're like, Neil, you're just all over the place.
We'll bring you back. It's okay.
Bring me back. But you have this amazing thing once a year you were telling me about.
Oh, gosh, yes. So the 4th Saturday in September, we have our annual Donor Day celebration. We just did our 18th or 19th, I don't recall.
18th.
And
18th.
it's remarkable. So it all started at the MERI. So we invite all the families from the previous year. We do ours from July 1 to June 30th.
Right.
So anyone for September of 25 will be anyone who's passed July 1 of 24 to June 30th of 25. Every family member, you can bring as many as you want. We've had people bring 50 people.
Wow.
Last year, this year we had a little over 500. I think that was low because the year before was about 750. But at that time, Helene was coming through, had a lot of people. They come from all over the country. We've had a couple people come from outside the U.S. To attend. We have a celebration of life. This is an opportunity for those who maybe didn't do a memorial service that could have some closure. I think it's closure for our team to meet with our families.
The families.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's so touching. We have a big reception. Then we have a video montage. We offer the families to send in photographs of their loved one. We make a video montage. This year, Sarah did our montage. Last year, I did it. That'll never happen again. I learned my lesson, and she learned hers. I assure you of that.
It's a beautiful thing, but it's a lot of work.
I know Sarah was interested to see what my mama looked like. And so when I was talking to her on the phone, she goes, I sent you a picture. And you're like, I was wondering what she looked like. She goes, she was smiling, living full of life. She looked like it. So,
yes, I don't make any plans for September 25 of next year.
You're lucky because I'm pushing my Feed
here.
My Lambs fundraiser 2 weeks past that this year because I think we had it on the same day this year, the 28th, because it was kind of rain. So I will definitely do that. So it's I'm gonna push it up into October a little bit this year, just so we avoid any like real heat. I mean, I'm finding out I am not built for the heat for sure when it comes to asphalt
I'm feeling
stuff.
that.
Yes, man. Like it's so it is the best time of year for sure, just because of weather stuff.
Right.
But I think October has been pretty good to us in the last few years. I'm just going to shoot for that. Yeah, it's a little cooler. I mean, just a couple of degrees is all I'm asking for.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Because,
makes a huge difference in the Delta.
It is for sure.
Degrees.
Well, especially like we're cooking, so like the barbecue butts, and it's not so much me, but like I'm hot just running around asphalt, but they're up there cooking on those trucks and trailers, and it's about to kill those guys. So, but I will make sure I push it out. Y'all have yours pretty much the same Saturday,
the fourth Saturday
in
September.
Yeah,
same time every year.
Keep that in mind. And again, if for people who weren't listening or earlier, maybe didn't hear it, best contact
MERI.org, MERI.org. You can email us at genesis@MERI.org.
Yeah.
Our phone number is 877-288-4483. And anytime, again, 24/7. You'd be surprised at the phone calls when we're on call that we get at 2 a.m. just saying, hey, I'm just checking for some information. It's like, oh, do you have a loved one's going to? No.
Yeah.
Just, because we're all up at 2 Googling, right?
A lot of people don't believe us, but that happens every night. We have people reaching out because they saw a commercial, or they were on the internet, or someone is getting ready to pass and they're looking into possibilities. And
we certainly want those calls, but if you can go to our website, and there's a place there to request information. There's a place there to email. But again, we welcome the calls. We may say, well, why are you calling?
I think I just plugged in Genesis and it came up, and like, that's another thing. Like you can Google search it. It's the information's out there if you're looking for it. But I wanted to get you guys on today just to get the folks in our area of DeSoto County more aware of what the options are.
We're glad you did. We have noticed an increase.
Yeah.
In DeSoto County, believe it or not. And we work a lot with the local funeral homes.
Sure.
We work a lot with the coroners.
Sure.
But we want the community to know that we're here. If you need anything, if you just have any questions, we're here.
And because of the fact, also something we talked about is there's a lot of local nonprofits and charities that need assistance and volunteers. And you talked about wanting to get involved in that kind of stuff in the community. Right. And since you're from DeSoto County originally, and even though Sarah's not, we won't hold that against her being a Razorback. But
ooh, pig.
Yeah. All right, cut that. No, I'm joking. Yeah. But anyway, is to let people know that it is something that's easily accessible. It's close. It's 20 minutes up the road. 30 minutes, whatever.
And we go back to the criteria side that as long as your loved one has been taken to a funeral home, the decedent has not been embalmed. That's very important. Mm-hmm. We have to make sure they're in refrigeration within a time period.
Sure.
We look at things like, they found them at home yesterday. Well, we're going to start asking questions because we have to ensure that, again, the donor meets the criteria that comes through. But we, again, want to work as much as possible to honor the wishes of either the donor or the donor's family.
Sure. Well, I don't know what else. You guys got anything else to add to it today? Like, do you think anything we missed about the program, or what we could talk about the future plans of the year? Like,
so we receive around a little over 1,000 donors a year.
Wow.
And we get more. Great. That's awesome. But we just want to provide education and awareness. Mm-hmm. It's not about, everyone has a budget. Everyone has all of these things. You're running an organization. But again, we're not for profit. So everything goes back into our organization.
I want to reiterate that. My whole show's about nonprofits and stuff. And this is, I know, obviously it takes money to run any program.
That's
we
right.
get that. And I know that there's But it all goes back into research, and
That's
it goes
right.
back into your facility.
Into our
It
facility.
goes back into the doctors that are there and the veterinarians and all their equipment and stuff that they have to have. And you guys.
And to our team, our staff.
Absolutely. The staff, everybody. So there's no one person taking like some huge CEO money, so I want to be clear on that.
We have a volunteer board of directors
Right.
between Methodist, Le Bonheur Healthcare, Baptist Healthcare Systems, and Sims Murphy Clinic. Our founder, Dr. Kevin Foley, who of Sims Murphy Clinic, is a world-renowned neurosurgeon.
Right.
And he is our chairman of the board and medical director. And again, volunteer board.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're very honored, if you will, to know that. And for me personally, again, mission driven is very important. And
Yeah.
I don't know that I could do anything else.
Well, you found your passion.
I feel like I have.
Yeah. I mean, you're pretty excited about it when I talk to you about it. Like, you wanted to come up and meet me today. I mean, me and Sarah were on it, and she goes, "Hey, my boss wants to meet you." And I'm like, "Well, why?" Because we were talking about DeSoto County and where I was from.
So my kids live in Colorado, and the goal has always been move to Colorado, move to Colorado.
Yeah.
That's where my grandbabies are. That's where I want to be. But there are other organizations out there like ours.
Sure.
But and they're very good organizations.
Sure.
But for me, the mission and vision that we
And the high
share,
standard.
yes,
Yes.
absolutely,
Yeah.
is so important to me. I hope they keep me to retire. 11 years.
You got 11 more years?
I have 11 years and 1 month and
Well,
4 days.
yes, and I hope you get there. I really do, man. I really
Me
do.
too.
Yeah, but if you enjoy what you do, it'll go by like poop.
I do.
It'll be gone.
I do. Love it.
So, Sarah, you got anything you want to add today?
I do like to say that, of course, we do have an open door policy. And again, you can call us at any time and you can stop by at any time unannounced. And we're happy to help and answer any questions at any time.
Oh, great. And I think we'll get all the info out there that we need to have on there for how to get a hold of you guys. And in any case, you can reach out to me and I can always get you in touch with them. I feel like we're going to be friends for a really long time. I hope you guys come back on the show again sometime. We'll talk
Anytime.
about it. And I want to thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And again, thank you guys for tuning in today on the Local Yokels podcast to discuss Genesis, the medical research facility where you can have whole body donations. And if you guys want to look into it, man, I implore you. It's a wonderful program. And with that, we're out. Have a great day.